All right, so we're continuing with the Pullman strike here. This is industrialism number 7. So what happened is in 1893 there was the railroad. Railroads went out of business, so it was affecting everybody. And so what happened is Pullman, because he's not making as much money, he started paying people less money. The problem was, remember, he had his own town. He didn't lower the rent for people. So he was paying them less money, but charging them the same amount of rent. So they get really upset and they start going on strike. So some of the stuff they did was they stopped the trains, which meant things weren't getting where they needed to. They broke switches and they set fire to basically anything that burned. So there was a federal injunction to stop the strike, and that was the first time that the federal government got involved in a labor dispute. And it's pretty interesting. Are there any reasons why you guys think that the federal government might step in? Pause it right here and think about why the federal government can step into a private business and stop the strike. So what you should be thinking is, what would give the federal government authority to step in? In this case, it was because of the U.S. mail. The strike was not allowing the U.S. mail to be delivered on time or properly. So what happened was the federal government stepped in and said they couldn't strike anymore. We should already know that. He lowered wages in 1893 because of the Panic of 1893. All right, this here's kind of interesting. This here is Credit Mobilier. It's pronounced Credit Mobilier. And this was a construction company that was created and then hired by the stockholders of the Union Pacific Railroad. Okay, so what they would do is they would, let's say you have a company and they're trying to build more railroads. Well, they need to hire a construction company to build that railroads. So what they would do is the Union Pacific Railroad would hire themselves, Credit Mobilier, their own construction company, to do that work. And then what they would do is they would pay that company lots of extra money. So let's say the job cost $50,000. That's how much the job costs to actually do. For all the materials, to pay the people, it costs $50,000. Well, they would pay themselves $100,000 to $150,000 to do the job. All that's doing is just putting more money in their pocket. All right, so you have shareholders, you have people who are investing in Union Pacific Railroad, and they're not getting any money back because all that profit is going into this construction company called Credit Mobilier, and they're basically screwing the shareholders out of money by spending that money on the construction company. Okay, so the stuff that was left over. So again, it only costs $50,000 to do it, but they would charge $100,000 to $150,000, and then they would just keep that. All right, so it was those stockholders that created Credit Mobilier. They then hire themselves and pay themselves to do work that cost much less to do, and they just kept the money rather than repaying it to shareholders. They got money from government grants. One of the interesting things is that they donated a lot of the money to people in Congress. So if you see here, this is Uncle Sam, represents American. This is the American public opinion. This here is a sword. And if you guys look here, right here, this harikari, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's the Japanese suicide. And basically a lot of the American people thought that these people should commit some type of suicide in the way that they should quit their job, those types of things. Corruption in office, accepting bribes, perjuries, lying under oath. So they defrauded the government and the people. The next thing we're going to look at in the next video is grangers. And if you remember, the grangers represent the farmers. So we're going to look at, again, the relationship between railroads and the farmers.